very welcome back. Gráinne Boyle is an international nanny and former Rose of Tralee who was refused work by an agency because of her Donegal accent.
Gráinne joins us now along with voice coach Paul Mussolinides. You're both very welcome to the programme. Thank you for coming in. Naturally, we're going to start with you, Gráinne, because this agency, we have to point out, wasn't in Ireland.
No, it was a London agency for Russian placements.
Okay. Everything about you was perfect, according to them, except for your accent.
Apparently so, yeah. They told me that my CV was perfect, my experience was perfect, my interview was great, and the only thing that they could pull me up on was my accent, that it wasn't BBC English.
Outrageous. Now, we do know there is a trend at the moment for the English butler, and I think it's got to do with Downton Abbey and Gosford Park and all of that malarkey. So, obviously, they've got lots of money. They can more or less get what they want. Do you see it from that perspective, that it is business? These people are squillionaires, and maybe that's just what they want, more so than your accent as such. That's just a trend.
Absolutely, I can see it from that perspective totally. But from that perspective, it really is just a marketing tool. So, you know, I really have been ruled out just on terms of marketing as far as I'm concerned.
But, you see, for me, I would say you've been discriminated against. You know, you've got all the qualifications, and somebody's just picking on your accent.
Yeah, I think like the small maddening thing about it all was that they were able to like completely name it, put it in black and white and say it was just definitely your accent. I think people probably get ruled out of jobs for lesser things and for more fickle things on a regular basis, but they probably don't have the audacity to say it.
Would it put you off actually wanting to be a nanny and working in such surroundings anyway, if they're going to be, you know, that condescending, or that you want such a specific accent?
It won't put me off. I don't think I'm going to be any less good at my job because of what they've said. But myself and Paul were having a little chat outside earlier, and we said maybe that I could market the Donegal accent in Moscow, and I could I'll try and maybe make them believe that it's the fanciest accent in Ireland, and maybe then they'd employ the Donegal girls.
You see, this is what I don't get, because normally when you travel the world and you hear people saying, I love the Irish accent. Now, I know there are many, many accents across the island of Ireland, so I thought that your Donegal lilt, if anything, would be charming.
That's what I've always had before. You know, I'm not going to say that I've always had the most clear accent. Sometimes I have difficulty, like all Irish people do. But at the same time, everybody thinks the Donegal accent especially is endearing. And yeah, it's just surprising, I suppose.
Okay, now we've put your accent to the test, Paul. We want you to listen up for this one. So we want to prove that the Donegal accent was a thing of beauty. So Gráinne very kindly agreed to read the news for us today. So making her news anchor debut, please. This is not the BBC News, read for you today by Gráinne Boyle.
Today, the Oireachtas schedule was interrupted as the issue of sexual health was discussed by senators. The Senators issued a progress report saying that they couldn't reach agreement on whether they were discussing sexual health or sexual healing. Controversy continues around IRA decommissioning as a result of an Anne's cache discovered in a garage in Dublin South Side. The discovery was made as Gardaí followed one mother's vehicle as it returned from collecting her children at the creche. And finally, tourists from Glandore, landing in Budapest today, had their schedule changed as their flight to Thailand was rerouted from Moscow. Aeroflot says the schedule change was due to an unforeseen issue. Progress was being made and that the schedule would return to normal. And that is the non-BBC News this morning.
Excellent.
You look the part.
You literally rushed in. You didn't get too many rehearsals with that one. It was like, just do it. Well done.
Thank you.
Paul,
Yes.
we deliberately scripted that.
Yeah,
there were several words in it that people would, if you pardon the pun, take issue with.
Yes.
Issue, darling. Issue.
Is it issue or issue?
That's the question, Paul.
Well, you know, if you went back maybe 30, 40 years, it would be issue. I mean, you know, the standard English pronunciation is issue. But, you know...
No, but he says it. That's the thing.
Well, you know, I mean, even the whole thing about the standard English, the BBC English is, you know, it's called received pronunciation, RP. I'd say about 2% of people in the United Kingdom speak with that accent. So it was very much designed for people who, you know, people who could afford radios. Yeah. You know, that was the market. So I mean, it's a bit like, you know, you know, who's your client? I mean, if they don't want a Donegal accent, they don't want a Donegal accent. If you're broadcasting to the people who can actually afford the radios, then you're going to be talking with your posh English accent. That's where it all started.
It can be so effective, though. I mean, even the word sexual, like everybody says sexual, nobody says sexual. So when you hear, say, a newsreader or somebody broadcasting come out with sexual, it sounds daft. Yeah,
no, it sounds ridiculous, to be honest with you. I mean, there's so many words that you, even like in some of those, the clip, I mean, like schedule and schedule. You know, I mean, schedule would be the English pronunciation and schedule would be the American pronunciation. And it doesn't make sense. Because if you think of school or scholar or schism or any other SCH word, you know, then they should be shul and schism and you know. So you know, so I think we've gone past that time of, you know, what's right and what's wrong. And I think one of the fascinating things in Ireland is, I mean, we're so obsessed with accents in this country. It's weird, you know. We're Irish, we're proud, but for years we were told that if you wanted to get on in life, you had to anglicise your accent. Now that's very strange. And for me, my parents came to Ireland from Cyprus, and although I was born here, you know, so I've been kind of tuned into accents a little bit, but I just find that odd that you know, to become successful, or even to become as successful as an Irish person, you kind of have to sound like another country.
But are there times when your accent is going to go against you, say in a job interview, because maybe the interviewers don't understand what you're saying, or that you've too much of an accent?
Well, I mean, you know, if clarity and mumbling, for example, mumbling has nothing to do with accent. Mumbling is just the fact that someone's mouth isn't opening, or they're talking at 90 miles an hour, and they're, you know, so we can control things like pace, pitch, and volume. And I mean, the bottom line really is that if somebody has a happy, healthy, vibrant voice, like Gráinne, you know, people are going to understand the accent, because that's not about clarity. Clarity comes from vowels and consonants, so you can mechanically adapt the way you pronounce vowels and mechanically adapt the way you pronounce consonants without actually changing your accent. You know, so for example, the word car, I think, is a great example in Ireland, because you have car and caw and car and cure and, you know, all the different kind of car. Now all I'm doing is just changing the shape of my mouth, and obviously whatever region of the country I was born in, I'm going to tune in to my parents, or I'm going to tune in to my school teacher, I'm going to tune in to my classmates. So, you know, people tune into what's around them, and you know, when people go away to America or England or wherever, and they come back, and you know, it might take them a few weeks.
You know, I've often heard that people who would have musical ears will pick up on accents and take them home with them.
Pat the car, bahaba, isn't that right for Boston accent? But is there a right and wrong? I mean, people get very pretty about this. We get phone calls sometimes, you know, of what people perceive as a mispronunciation. Sure. They could write in some snotty email, and you just think, oh, really? Does it matter that much?
Well, to some people, obviously, it does, because they wouldn't write it. I mean, I used to have a big kind of bugbear going through the airport, and I'd hear people saying, you know, would you pick up the courtesy phone? Now, because I've always known it to be courtesy phone. And that's how I learned it, that's how I believed it, that's whatever. So suddenly it's become courtesy phone, and that's uniquely Irish. Now, I had to kind of get over myself, because it's uniquely Irish. It's a bit like film and film. Or
crisps and crips.
Yeah. That's just wrong. But I mean, we do have different pronunciations, and I think that's kind of uniquely Irish. So, but it's no different to aluminium and aluminum, you know, an American and an English person. So I just think we have our unique way of doing things. And but let me put it this way, you know, if you look at someone like Mary Robinson, you know, she was born in County Mayo. And she went to college in Trinity. I mean, you know, is she less of a president? Is she less of a...
She's a Trinity accent now, though, really. Hasn't she? More so
no, she's got it. No, but see, but why are you saying that? Because but you're saying it like it's a bad thing. It's not her fault she went to Trinity. You know, and she's going all around the world with the United Nations. You know, Michael D. Higgins is from Limerick and Clare, and Mary McAleese is from the North Belfast. I mean, I think we're so lucky in this country. You could take the landmass of Ireland and place it in Lake Michigan. And if you go from one end of Lake Michigan to the other end of Lake Michigan, it's the same accent. We've got this, I mean, we have the most amazing accents in this country. They should be celebrated. It's just that, I guess what it comes down to is clarity.
If you could change something about all our accents, what would it be?
I wouldn't. I mean, do you mean as an Irish? No, I don't, I mean, I actually find it disturbing. I mean, even, can I give you an example? in the 50s and 60s and 70s and sometimes into the 80s, children were taught speech and drama. Now, it's the old-fashioned speech and drama, not the way people are taught now, which is about confidence and creativity and engagement and interactiveness. But, you know, there was this very odd thing where children were given a poem that they didn't understand. And then they were told to speak it in a voice that wasn't their own, and somebody would mark them out of 10. So what you were teaching the child is talk rubbish, use an accent that isn't your own, and someone will think you're great.
Yeah, be inauthentic. I mean, that's the message.
That's weird.
Well, I remember getting a piece of advice years ago because I got an awful lot of criticism because of my accent. And being told, look, if you're focusing on what you're on how you sound, you're not concentrating on what you're saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, the focus has to be on what you're saying. You sounded, to me, just in the right place as you broadcast that news because you were being you.
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay, what did you think?
I actually thought she was better than a lot of people that we actually see on our air.
Well, now, let's not go that far. I used to read the news defending my colleague as well.
Current company, exactly. No, but she did really well. And I think she did really well because she was being herself. It was her true self as opposed to... Because sometimes people have a preconception as to how you should read the news or how you should make a speech at a wedding or how you should make a presentation in your work or go for a job interview, you know?
Well, the good news is you have a few more job offers out of all this furore anyway, don't you?
I do, yeah. I got an interview with a rival agent in London on Thursday, so I'm off to London for that. And I've had a few other offers, more so like on the teaching side of things where I'm a qualified psychologist now, so considering everything, and it's been overwhelming, the support.
Overqualified for minding children in Russia anyway.
I don't think you could be overqualified, to be honest.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I mean, it's such an interesting area, isn't it?
Hugely interesting. And I thought these barriers had been knocked down years ago, but obviously.
Well, I can't wait to see what happens next for you. You actually have the world at your feet. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Good to meet you.